afternoon, and welcome to a special meeting of the Glendale City Council being called to order at 1:04 on June 29th, 2021. Due to the evolving situation with the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Glendale City Council special meeting will be available to the public electronically. Due to social distancing requirements, the public will not be able to attend the meeting, but you are encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of your homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable, Charter Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. It is streaming online at glendaleca.gov. Let's see. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937, there goes my voice, 937-8100. City staff will be submitting these questions and comments in real time in the appropriate to the appropriate person during the Glendale City Council special meeting. May we have roll call?
Councilmember Agajanian,
Present.
Brotman,
Here.
Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
and Mayor Devine.
Here. What's next, please?
Next would be the agenda for the Tuesday, June 29, 2021 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on June 22nd, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And next?
Next would be closed session, conference with real property negotiators, property location 216 North Brand Boulevard and 116 West California Avenue, negotiating parties, Glendale Arts Agency negotiators. Attending the closed session are Rubik Golanyan, Michael J. Garcia, Jillian Van Meiden, Philip Lanzafame, Michelle Flynn, and Bradley Calvert. Instructions to the negotiators will concern the price and terms for the lease of the property.
Thank you. Do we expect to report out, Mr. Garcia?
We do not, but as you know, we have an open session item related to that discussion.
Okay, thank you. I would like to let the public know that we have time now for public comments if we have phone calls, but I would encourage you or suggest that if you would like to call in and express your opinions and your voices, that you wait until after closed session when we come back into session. But if you'd like to be heard right now, then we'll take any calls with a, for right now, let's do 2 minutes before. Do we have callers?
Mayor, I do not have callers for this closed session item. I do have callers for item number 2. That's when we return
Okay,
back.
thank you. Then we'll do that. We'll recess to closed session. Thank you. Thank you. Well, welcome back. We'll now resume the special meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have the first item, please?
Next item will be community development regarding management and operation of the Alex Theater, 216 North Brand Boulevard. Authorization to terminate exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts to provide direction to begin alternate negotiations and temporarily extend current lease and management agreement to the facility transition. A would be motion authorizing staff to terminate exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts for the lease and management of the Alex Theater and provide direction to commence alternate negotiations for a theater manager operator. B, motion authorizing staff to extend current lease and management agreement with Glendale Arts for interim term to facilitate transition. And that's
Thank you.
I'd like to say we do have 14 callers for this item.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to mention that council has received numerous emails regarding this item and conversations and people concerned about the Alex Theater and what will become of it. I hope that after this meeting this afternoon, you will have a clear explanation of how we arrived where we are today and how we plan on moving forward with the Alex Theater. I want to assure everybody that it is of the utmost concern of this council that the Alex Theater continue to thrive in our city. We have no intention of harming it or disbanding it or shutting its doors. We want it to be successful, and we want it to be a truly community theater as we've had in the past, and for the enjoyment of all of our residents. And with that, we have 14 callers, so I'm going to mention that I will hear every caller. I ask that you listen to the report and the conversation afterwards, and if you decide that you don't want to be heard today, then please, I guess, discontinue your call, and but I do plan on taking everyone. So thank you very much, and Mr. Galanian.
Yes, good
With that-
afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. We're just going to go directly to Bradley Calvert, our Assistant Director of Community Development, to present this item for your consideration.
If I may just briefly, procedurally, Madam Mayor, if we hear from Mr. Calvert, have council ask any questions, and then hear from the public before council begins deliberations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. As noted, we are here requesting direction for two components of the Alex Theater lease and management negotiations. The first is regarding whether to enter negotiations with any additional proposers, but more specifically the two top scoring firms from the original RFP. And the second is to extend the current lease and management agreement with Glendale Arts for both the properties on Brand and California Street. As we'll note later on, that can be done by a defined period of time, or it can be done on a month-to-month basis. Following the review of the three submittals for the Alex Theater Management RFP, staff was directed to enter negotiations with Glendale Arts. During this time, we have had some back and forth with the Glendale Arts and negotiations with the terms, the first of which equated to about a $500,000 fee over a period of 10 years for about $5 million for that total 10-year period. The second was for $385,000 a year over a 10-year period, representing $3.85 million. And the most recent proposal that we received was for a 2-year term of $400,000, followed by an 8-year term of $250,000 for a $2.8 million fee for that 10-year total. Additionally, there is about a $1.5 million in capital improvement costs that are also being considered and negotiated as part of this. During this negotiation period, staff has felt that we might have reached an impasse, trying to negotiate to a term, to a fee level that we felt would be appropriate to bring forward to council. Especially during this latest proposal, we felt that didn't quite meet those goals that we were trying to achieve. As a result, we're requesting direction on whether or not to move forward with negotiations with the top 2 scoring firms from the RFP. That would still include Glendale Arts. We do want to make that clear that this does not have to be just one or the other. We are not in exclusive negotiating terms on this. A couple of notes I also wanted to make, and Mayor Devine, I believe you mentioned some of these as well, some of the comments that have gone around in the community, we just want to make sure that we're clear about, is that entering negotiations with another proposer does not necessarily terminate the negotiations with Glendale Arts. It gives us an opportunity to see what someone else may be able to propose. During this time, conversations can continue with Glendale Arts. They would have the opportunity to continue to revise their proposal and bring that back to staff that we would then bring forward to council. It's also important to note, and I believe that you also mentioned this as well, Mayor Devine, this does not mean the closure of the Alex Theater either. As acknowledged, this is a city-owned asset. This process is really to identify a lease and management term that allows us to responsibly and successfully manage this asset. And as stated, regardless of council's direction of who we were to negotiate with or how many, we would return periodically with these updates to council to see if these negotiations are going in a satisfactory manner. So in closing, we are seeking direction both on the negotiations and whether or not to negotiate with the top 2 scoring RFP firms, and the length of extension for the Glendale Arts, and that is for the property at California and Brand. And as noted, that could be by a defined period of time, 3, 4, 6 months, as we negotiate or we navigate the negotiations, or if there's any form of transition, or it could be done on a month-to-month basis, where we could give a 30-day notice that period is ended. So that concludes my comments and presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from my colleagues? Can you be a little, then if I don't hear any, can you be a little more specific, Mr. Calvert, about the negotiations and how council, or what contributed to council's decision at this point? I think the public is a little bit unaware of some of those issues.
And my apologies, I didn't read through all of my notes here as I was discussing some of that. As mentioned, while the fee, the management fee has come down, it's not believed to have come down to the level that I think council and staff would have liked to have seen. Additionally, there has been a change in the leadership with Glendale Arts that did raise some questions and some concerns. Some of which, some information has been provided to us by Glendale Arts. But I believe through some of the kind of the analysis of the terms, the dollar amount, there's still more information that was needed to justify that higher dollar amount. Is there additional programming? Are there additional things that we would be receiving as a city, as a community, to justify that higher fee? But again, there also were concerns that were raised about the change in leadership as well.
Any
So, I
questions,
mean, let's
Council?
just call it out. When we say change in leadership, it's my understanding that Elisa Glickman, the longtime director of the of the Arts, Glendale Arts, is leaving.
That is correct.
I mean,
She has
that's-
stepped down.
And that information was not brought to us until the middle, perhaps tail end of our negotiation process.
That is correct.
And are you familiar with the word renege?
I am.
Do you believe that you or your staff reneged in any way on the negotiation process?
We believe that there were some changing circumstances there, but I do not believe that we have reneged in any kind of fashion.
Anything else? Any other? We'll leave it. I'll rest.
No,
Thank you.
I think not. I think that, I think it was made clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Calvert, that in the negotiations or the RFP, that the council's target was $250,000 a year, and they came in with first three, what was it, 385, and then they raised it to 400,000 a year for 2 years, and then came down to, I think, what, 200,000, 225 for the next 8 years. So we were a bit taken aback by that 20% or more hike in what we felt was the starting point of, or the ending point, actually, the cap on our negotiations.
Correct. Staff did believe that the $250,000 kind of served as that ceiling. Again, the initial proposal was for $500,000 a year for 10 years. The second was $385,000 for 10 years, and the third was for the first 2 years at $400,000 and the remaining 8 years at $250,000.
And prior to that, what had we been authorizing? 150?
$150,000.
150. So we were willing to go up to 250. Mr. Galani,
I didn't mean to interrupt, just
Oh,
to add
no,
something when
please.
you're done.
go ahead, I'm done.
Yeah, Mayor Devine, member City Council, just wanted to clarify the reason why Mr. Calvert has indicated the potential to negotiate with 2 top proposers as opposed to 3 is because the third proposer scored significantly lower than the other 2 in the process of the selection.
Madam
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may,
Sure.
just add, even though this was discussed in closed session perhaps has some, negative connotations about the back room deal with cigars and who knows what else. Due to the sensitivity of the negotiations, we were advised by city attorney to conduct those in closed session rather than open session. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilmember.
And the 250 number, since I believe we have previously decided amongst us that anything in those closed sessions could be disclosed, I think it's only fair to say more than one council member, me being one of them, was not comfortable with the 250 number. So just leave it at that. I felt something lower would be more appropriate, but I just want to put that on the record.
All right, thank you, Mr. Calvert. I hope that we've laid this out. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ajani, Councilmember Najjar.
Mr. Calvert, or city attorney, doesn't matter. There is this issue of that Glendale Arts tried to negotiate with council members, let's say, or city, and we were non-responsive. Can you explain that, how we could be different?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. The city was not responsive, or the?
Yes, the Glendale Arts, they came forward with different figures, but we were non-responsive as to what is acceptable to us.
Correct. So I think what you're referring to, Councilmember Agajanian, was our negotiating team had expressed the council's preference to be in the discussion of a range of a certain number, and it wasn't, because that number wasn't, we didn't specifically made a counteroffer to any of their proposals, just explaining that was not within the range which the majority of the council was comfortable negotiating.
Also, sometimes like in private, people that go forward, they throw a number and then they get counter offers, and it works that way. Where on this matter, that's not the way, like in business or buying a building or renting a place. You negotiate directly. Then what they say, and you write back, say, no, not this much, that much. So this is not the same process, is it?
Councilmember Agajanian, I think if the question is, were we required to make a counter offer to one of their proposals, the answer is no.
Okay.
And we negotiated. We believe that we negotiated in good faith and explained our concerns, the city council's concerns, with the proposals that were being made by Glendale Arts.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Can I-
much.
I don't
Mr.
have questions,
Councilmember Brotman,
I have some
comment. Go ahead.
comments now. So, first of all, I as I've expressed.
I'm sorry. So if the council's going to make comments or deliberate, I
wanna
think
hear the calls
I think it's important, imperative that we listen to the callers. If there are no more
Callers first.
questions.
Okay, any more
Okay.
questions? So no more questions? Okay.
No questions per se.
All right, thank you. We'll go to the phone calls. We'll take, the first 10, we'll give 3 minutes, and then after that, 2 minutes for the next 10. and
Sorry,
one-
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we need to figure out how many callers we have and then
How
and
many
give
do-
everybody the same amount of time.
Madam Mayor, at this time, we have 23 callers waiting in the queue.
23 callers.
I would
So-
suggest give them 1 or 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So let's give the first 10 2 minutes, and then after that, 1 minute each.
Madam Mayor, I apologize. We need to give everybody the same amount of time. So,
Oh, we do?
yes.
Okay. Let's give them 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes. And I please, I ask that we kind of be careful not to be repetitive and saying the same thing over and over and over again. If you have a clear reason for your opinion, please give it. And if you don't want to take the entire time, please, you don't need to take the entire time. We can take more callers. All right, thank you.
That will be an hour almost. 30 calls by 2 minutes is 60 minutes, an hour.
Shall we, let's see, how does council feel? Do you want to do 2 or 1? I know it's my decision, but let's do 2, and then we'll see how it's going. But if it starts to get repetitive, then we'll take it down. Can we do that if it?
My recommendation is to have the same amount of time. That is the difficulty with the system, not knowing how many people have called in. But if we,
Okay.
do we know?
At this time, it looks like as we're talking, we're getting more calls. It's
Correct.
24 callers.
Okay, so let's do 1 minute for each one.
Nina Crow, you have 1 minute. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mayor Devine. Excuse me, I'll take this off. Mayor Devine and City Council members. This is Nina Crow, and as the incoming CEO of Glendale Arts, I must speak frankly. You know, last year was a very difficult year for us, and a bright spot in an otherwise bleak year was when we were awarded the RFP. We were very gratified to have won your confidence, and we were looking forward to negotiating the details, and things suddenly reversed, and we don't know why, honestly. And I'm sure this has been a very frustrating process for you as well, and so what I would like to do is propose the following. Restart the conversations with us exclusively so that we can have discussions in earnest about our management agreement. Use our most recently revised proposal as a starting point, which reduced the management fee to $250,000. If this was a stated threshold that you gave to the city staff to report back to us, it was never communicated to us that this was a threshold. Authorize city staff to report out from closed sessions. I believe this is best practices, and communicate
Nina,
the approval of
Nina,
the
thank you
dollar
very
amount
much.
to provide a counteroffer.
Okay.
I think we can agree that the Alex Theater deserves
Ms. Crow?
preservation.
Ms. Crow?
Hold on.
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Yes.
Generally, you have to leave it then, given that she's the representative of the
Yes, go ahead
organization,
and
you
let
can
her
probably give her a little bit more
continue.
time and limit
Yeah,
the speakers
let her
after that.
continue.
Thank you. I think that we can all agree that the Alex Theater deserves preservation, a balanced programming of local and commercial attractions, and an organization uniquely qualified to do both operating it. This does not need to be complicated. It only needs to be communicated. And if communication is what you want, we are ready to sit at the table with you, but we look forward to that from you as well. So my final statement will be to please reverse your vote from your closed session last week and vote to not cease exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts. Again, this does not need to be complicated. It just needs to be communicated, and let's finish what was already voted on to start. I thank you for my time.
Thank you.
Thank
Can I ask, Mr. Calvert, was their last bid $250,000?
The last bid that we received was the 2 years, $400,000, 8 years at $250,000.
Okay, thank you. Next caller.
Tiffany Nitch. Tiffany, you have 1 minute. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead. Tiffany,
Hi, Tiffany
go ahead.
sorry. Hi, Tiffany Nitchie, LA Historic Theater Foundation. I did want to say quickly that the transparency of today's agenda, when we've all been waiting on this call for an hour to only get a minute, is a little disappointing, but I'll try my best to make it quick. LAHTF has concerns about the future of the Alex and its stability in the community it serves and district that it anchors. They're not able to plan accordingly with programming, community engagement, and future bookings with the uncertainties surrounding their future involvement looming over the theater. It's not productive for the Alex as an entity nor for the community. This is a time when local businesses and districts are trying to rebound from 15 months of lockdown and limited revenue. They are reliant on one another to flourish and bring traffic and patrons back to their establishments. They are truly in this together. With an entertainment venue shuttered, not being able to bring thousands of patrons to a community each week is detrimental to the rejuvenation of commerce in the area. For every ticket sold, an average of $32 is spent in additional revenue on parking, dining, retail, etc. Not $32 per group attending together, but $32 per ticket. That is revenue that cannot be replaced, especially at this time. Glendale Arts is a nonprofit formed specifically to operate the Alex Theater. And while we are pleased to hear that while you may cease exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts, we do strongly encourage a continued conversation and dialogue with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. The Alex will not be shuttered. Next.
Charles Bergman. Charles, you have 1 minute. Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you. My name is Charles Bergman. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Musical Theater Guild, which has been a resident company of the Alex Theater in Glendale for many years. During that time, we've given back to the community by participating in many local arts events. These are Broadway veterans that share their time not only for the arts but for the city of Glendale. We gave a free outdoor performance at the Americana in April of 2019 to promote Taste Walk Glendale, in which we also participated in May of 2019. We ran a booth in front of the Alex Theater during the Glendale Open Air and Music Festival in September of 2019 and provided entertainment with 2 free concerts on the outdoor stage. We have proactively forged relationships with surrounding businesses, stimulated local revenue with performance-related events promoting pre- and post-theater dining at Chess Park Tavern, Eden on Brand, and during our last performance in February of 2020, our dinner for 30 cast and crew was takeout from nearby Chipotle. I will cede the rest of my time to Dr. Paul Wong, who's a member of our executive committee who will speak in a few minutes.
Thank you.
We thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman. Next.
Lisa Yerian. Lisa, you're live.
Yegi.
Go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Mayor Devine and Glendale City Council members, my name is Lisa Yegian, and I have been a member, a Glendale resident and homeowner for over 35 years. I raised my family here, and my children attended Glendale schools, where I was on Lincoln PTA board and foundation president. I was also the vice president of Stevie High School Prom Plus. I am fully invested in our Glendale community. I am a proud Glendale Arts board member and have been involved with GA for over 9 years. I'm fortunate to have worked as business development manager for Massage Envy Glendale for the past 7 years and have been involved with the Greater Downtown Glendale Association during that time. I have firsthand knowledge of the partnership between my workplace, our community, and Glendale Arts. Our community business connections and how they directly benefit the Alex reflects the support and faith we have in GA.
Thank you.
And their leadership.
Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa, thank you. Your minute is up. Thank you very much for calling.
Next caller.
Paul Wong, you have 1 minute. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Paul Wong. I'm on the executive committee of Musical Theater Guild, and I will be continuing the comments from Charles Bergman. We have developed and supported youth educational activities to nurture the next generation of theater artists and patrons. We make visits to local schools, introducing students to musical theater, and then we provide them free or discounted tickets to those students and their families to attend our show at the Alex, providing a new source of business patrons for the local community, many of whom would have no other reason to be in Glendale or patronize Glendale businesses. We are ready to move forward with plans for our next season, but in order to resume our activities as well as our support of the Glendale business community, we need a firm commitment soon that we still have a home at the Alex at reasonable business rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Manuel Sanchez, you have 1 minute. Manuel, go ahead.
Hello, I've been a resident of Glendale since 1959. I was 11 years old. I've been going to the Alex Theater for movies, and later on, one of my friends actually was the manager of the Alex Theater. His name was Paul Bladen. when it was a Fox West Coast Theater. Personally, I'm a member of the Alex Film Society, and I don't understand a lot of that dealings and other things that you have to keep that Alex Theater viable. But without the Alex Theater, you might as well not even come to Glendale anymore, because the Alex Theater represents Glendale, and the Alex Theater was built as a movie house vaudeville, and I wish I still had that organ that originally had there, so occasionally you can even have silent film festivals. So the Alex Film Society is a big component of the Alex Theater.
Thank you, Manuel.
The Studios Festival will be coming. Keep the Alex Theater. Do not
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Your minute
Do
is up.
not close
Thank you very
it.
much.
We are not.
good negotiations and good faith.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. We are not closing the Alex Theater. Go ahead. Next caller.
Helen McDonough. Helen, you have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor Devine and City Council members. I own Massage NB Glendale for 17 years, and I'm also the Greater Downtown Glendale Association board member. I implore you to open a dialogue with Glendale Arts exclusively. Treat Glendale Arts and the Alex like it's a public amenity curated for the people of Glendale. With a city of 200,000+ residents, it's a couple of dollars per resident. No third-party management company is going to give a crap about curating content for residents of Glendale or build relationships like the way Elisa and her team have. And I would like to address the issue about Elisa. She's been grooming two successors for the last 10+ years. They know what makes the Alex successful, and those two successors have all the same relationships as Elisa has. People move on. People change jobs. So please, please open a dialogue with Glendale Arts exclusively. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Maria Sahakian. Maria, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor Devine and members of the Glendale City Council. This is Maria Sahakian from Glendale Arts, lifelong and proud Glendale resident, and one of the successors that Ms. McDonough just referenced. I'm the incoming Chief Operating Officer of the Alex Theater. In Glendale Arts, you have an organization custom built to operate not just any theater, but the one and only historic Alex Theater in Glendale, California. We've elevated the Alex into one of the most highly sought after venues in LA, cutting through the fierce competition among all the players in the entertainment capital of the world. You have a City of Glendale success story that remained operational and continued to deliver for the public and local businesses against all odds during the 16-month shutdown. Our business model and mission allow us to expertly strike the delicate balance between achieving this status and remaining tied and true to our Glendale roots. We are treasured by our local community, and we treasure it right back. Today, we stand at the precipice of opening the Alex Theater's gates again to the arts and commerce. Over $400,000 in income for active bookings.
Thank you, Maria. Your 1 minute is up. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Kathy Grayson, you have 1 minute. Kathy, go ahead. Kathy, can you hear me? Miss Grayson, can you hear me? Kathy, can you hear me? Jill Kerrigan, you have 1 minute. Go ahead, Jill.
Yes, the city council is focusing on the wrong things. When you take a $500,000 budget and break it down by the population of Glendale, it's $2.50 per person. Have you ever had a citizen of Glendale come to you and say, I don't want to pay for the Alex. I don't want to pay $2.50 in taxes for the Alex. There is no problem here. And when you negotiate with a nonprofit, it's different than when you buy a building, Mr. Agajanian. They're not deciding how much profit do I want. They're saying, what programs can I do for this amount of money? What restoration, what preservation can I do for this amount of money? There is no profit. It is apples and oranges. And we need to reinstate exclusive negotiations, because a for-profit company will never, ever serve your people the way a nonprofit Glendale Arts will. They are excellent. I've produced 14 award shows.
Thank
two
you,
of them
Jill.
at the
Thank you,
Alex,
Jill.
And this is the best
Miss
team
Kerrigan,
in
your
the
minute is
city.
up. Thank you. Thank you for calling us. Escott Norton, you have 1 minute. Escott?
Dear council members, my name is Escott Norton, former Glendale resident, lifelong Alex patron, and historic theater consultant. I'm speaking in support of reopening the negotiations with Glendale Arts. Glendale Arts built the Alex Theater into what it is today, a nationally known and respected home for the arts. They creatively weathered the horrific pandemic that has ravaged arts organizations and theaters around the world, and they're ready to continue doing the good work they have done for more than a decade. Negotiation is a two-way street. Dictating a specific number is not negotiation, it is dictation. The council saw the value that Glendale Arts provides and seemed willing to try to work out the details. Now it appears the city is refusing to negotiate in good faith. I'm embarrassed for the city of Glendale. This action shines a negative light on what should be a positive step as we emerge from the pandemic. Instead of celebrating reopening, you're throwing away the good work done by Glendale Arts. Please listen to reason, reopen exclusive negotiations with the people who know how to operate the Alex Theater better than anyone else, Glendale Arts, and renew their lease for the term proposed. Thank you.
Kathy Grayson? Kathy? Kathy Grayson? You have 1 minute. Kathy? Phil Kubel? Phil? You have 1 minute.
Madam Mayor, since I'm the board chair of Glendale Arts and been critical in these conversations, I'd like to kindly request for 60 seconds if possible.
Sorry?
As the chair of the Alex board, he's asking for, or the Glendale Arts board, he's asking for another minute.
Sure.
Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you. So my name is Phil Kubel. I'm the board chair for Glendale Arts. It has been an honor and a privilege to lead the Glendale Arts board. We wholeheartedly believe that our mission remains critical to Glendale's vibrance and growth. We believe the arts, especially during this turbulent time, create connections that benefit all of us. They help us envision the future for ourselves and our city. I've seen firsthand the skill, expertise, passion, and dedication of the Glendale Arts team. They displayed grit and humanity through the worst parts of the pandemic, and Elisa, Nina, and Maria provided the leadership the staff needed to be able to keep the focus on the future alive. Glendale Arts has made the Alex the cultural beacon that it is today through over a decade of unsurpassed commitment. Today, we are asking the city to please return to the negotiating table exclusively with us. Throughout the process, we've diligently tried to address the city's negotiating points to the extent that we were aware of them, and we pledge to continue to do so. As Ms. Crow mentioned earlier, we never received counteroffers or any feedback of any kind from our proposals, so please take that into consideration. Glendale Arts is powered by members of the community, and as a resident of Glendale for over 20 years, I would hate to see the Alex, the jewel of our city, managed by an outsider. We know Glendale intimately, and we have the leadership and assets at hand to bring back the Alex, the Arts and Entertainment Corridor, and downtown Glendale better than ever. I ask you, please, reconsider your decision and give Glendale Arts the opportunity to revive the Alex and the community back to the vibrant city we all want to live in. Thank you.
Megan Sayers, you're live. You have 1 minute. Megan, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Megan Sayers, and I'm a Glendale resident calling in support of Glendale Arts. Over the years, they have successfully managed the Alex, transforming it into a hub of arts and culture and making us all so proud. And as a resident, I'm just asking the council to continue working with this incredibly valuable organization. You know, I have the utmost faith in you. If you restart exclusive negotiations with this team, you can support a nonprofit that has done so much and continues to do so much for our community, you know, especially after a year that has taken so much away, especially for the arts, especially for nonprofits. You know, this is when we need this the most. Thank you.
Alyssa Glickman. Alyssa, you're live. You have 1 minute, Alyssa. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Elise, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Elisa Glickman. I'm the current CEO of Glendale Arts. A lot has been said today about the transition between me and members of my staff. Over the last year, weathering the pandemic, going through the RFP process and an organizational assessment, I had an opportunity to sit back and witness the majesty of the Glendale Arts team, their tenacity and their grace throughout this whole process. The mentorship that I have been able to provide them and the growth that they have come into has been outstanding. And I knew that now the time was right. This was not a hoodwink. This was not a bait and switch. This was a passing of the torch of people who are capable to lead. And if the argument here today is transition, then coming in with an unknown and unproven entity has to be unacceptable. And we know it's unacceptable because the community has come out in support of what we offer, what we bring to the table. Give us a benchmark and we will hit it.
Thank you, Ms.
Bring
Glickman.
us
Your
back
1
to
minute
the
is up.
negotiating table.
Thank you,
Thank
Alyssa.
you for your time.
Laura Crook. Laura, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Laura Crook, and I'm a Glendale resident, and I'm calling in support of Glendale Arts and the Alex, and that you can reopen negotiations with them as operators of the theater. This historic space is not only iconic to our city, but it's an important community resource. The change in leadership that you were referring to is simply just going to veteran staff, and we can't banish care for assumed financial gain. What makes Glendale Arts an excellent steward of this historic space is not just their commitment to preservation, but their understanding of the importance of art in all forms and their ability to make it accessible to all members of the community. Thank you.
Mike Hume. Mike, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Hume, and I'm speaking today as an individual and theatre historian with intimate knowledge of the Alex Theatre. First of all, I am concerned at what appears to be a lack of transparency in how the city has chosen to handle this topic of the Alex Theatre and who will operate it. A decision was made behind closed doors without any reasoning made available to cease exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts. This was followed by seeking to ratify that decision not in a regular city meeting, but in this special meeting, and then switching up the time of this meeting from 2 p.m. to 1 p.m. at the last minute. Consider the optics here. It looks like you're trying to keep this on the quiet and avoid as little public input as possible. I sincerely hope that's not the case. I'd note that the most recent proposal by Glendale Arts, quoted by staff to the meeting today, was exactly what the city suggested Glendale Arts proposed back in April, with the addition of $150,000 a year for the first 2 years, which is probably related to things like getting back out of COVID. So are we seriously
Thank you,
arguing
Mike. Your
over
1 minute is up.
$300,000
Mr.
one-time
Hume?
increase above what you indicated in April was
Mike,
okay,
thank you. Your
which
1 minute
just
is up.
a 1% increase over 10 years? Please continue your negotiations.
Thank you,
with
sir,
Glendale
for
Arts.
calling us. Your 1 minute is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Friar McAllister, you have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Friar McAllister. I'm an independent theatrical producer and general manager operating in Los Angeles since 1994. I have had a prior association, and I'm speaking in support of SAS Theatrical Venue Management, which was the company that scored the highest on the RFP. They have not stacked this call-in queue with scripted responses, nor am I speaking from a script. I exhort the City Council in good faith, if we're going to use that, evoke that term, in good faith at this point would suggest that the Council re-examine the proposal from SAS and consider its viability. SAS has absolute sensitivity to the community's concerns and is bringing a set of contacts and skills and a skill set that is unsurpassed in this city. And you would be remiss to ignore that fact as you consider or reconsider the current state of the negotiations with Glendale Arts. The distinction between nonprofit and commercial management has not been expressed aptly here. Any engagement in a venue like the Alex in this community would be
Thank you, Mr. McAllister.
a hybrid
Your
of a
minute is up.
commercial and a nonprofit entity.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Ms.
so much for your consideration.
Chris Greens, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Mayor Devine and City Council, my name is Chris Green. I'm a proud 24-year Glendale resident, Warner Brothers Television creative executive, and a Glendale Arts Board member for almost 4 years. I've seen firsthand the amazing work done by the GA staff on behalf of the City of Glendale, its citizens, as well as the Alex Theater and the local arts community, especially weathering the pandemic. I've seen the strong and ongoing economic impact that Glendale Arts and the Alex Theater make on the downtown business district by consistently programming well over 200 nights annually at the Alex, as well as supporting local arts and cultural organizations through the events and support it provides. I strongly encourage the council to continue exclusive negotiations in good faith with Glendale Arts and for its ongoing management, programming, maintenance, and preservation of the Alex Theater. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Mayor, would you like us to stop taking any more phone calls at this time? We have 10 more in the queue.
No, we have to take them all. 1 minute.
Justin Smith, you have 1 minute. Justin Smith.
Hi, I'm Justin Smith, president of the Glendale International Film Festival. After guiding last year's festival through an unprecedented year, we ran the first digital film festival. We've actually had meetings with Glendale Arts to reach a deal for the 8th annual film festival next year and potentially all future years. Unfortunately, taking away the Alex Theater from the Glendale Arts not only risks defunding not only risks, taking away an important asset to the city, it will risk defunding Glendale Arts, which means we might not continue as a film festival, and this festival founded by the late Velvet Rhodes will be defunct. I want the Alex Theater to continue running Glendale Arts because I'm worried that while I'm very encouraged to hear that the Alex Theater will not be defunct, that if they don't get renewed, that they will have that a private company will take control of the theater, and
Thank
they'll
you,
only care
Justin.
about profit.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Your 1 minute is up. Thank you for calling. Kathy Grayson, you have 1 minute. Go ahead. Kathy? Kathy Grayson? Mayor, I will be dropping this caller. This is
Thank
the third
you.
time we've
Yes.
tried. Kevin Bartanian? Kevin, you have 1 minute.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Vice Chair of Glendale Arts. I'm also a lifelong resident of the City of Glendale. Glendale Arts went through an extensive and expensive audit process paid for by the city and requested by council. And the audit revealed that the theater was managed properly. We then were asked to participate in the RFP process. We participated with multiple other bidders and were voted to be the best. And then we're suited for the Alex Theater. And subsequently, we were asked to negotiate with the city staff, but real negotiations never took place with the city. Madam Mayor, the fees you laid out were not all accurate, and every offer was attached to different terms and must be looked at holistically. After all, we were really negotiating against ourselves with no feedback. I asked for the council to reconsider the position and allow us for the transparent negotiation process to take place. As a volunteer board and city resident, you'll find that our interests are always going to be aligned. By you dragging this out, unintentionally, you're draining every resource we have as a nonprofit. As you know, no one wants to get into contract.
Thank you,
with a
Kevin.
company
Your
that
1
may not
minute
have
is up.
access to the product they are selling.
Mr.
Thank you.
Bartanian, thank you very much for calling. Susan Ebert, you have 1 minute. Go ahead. Susan?
Good afternoon, Mayor Devine and council members. My name is Sue Cabral Ebert. I am originally one of the two co-chairs of the original Glendale Arts back in the 1990s, appointed by Dave Weaver. And as co-chair, we totally believe that you should return to negotiations with the Arts Council. Not to do so is taking the trust out of the people of Glendale, who you represent. And they have done a wonderful job over all these years. and I think they deserve to have you go back into negotiations with them. I was the president of IATSE Local 706 for more than 15 years, and we supported the Alex Theater. We also have honored a number of our members at the Alex during the theater, the film screening. I'm now working with Ingledod Media, and we are in the process of looking at the Alex Theater for our award show. And this is totally changing the whole venue. So please go back into negotiations. We implore you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much for calling. Monica Campagna? Monica?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Devine, council members, city staff. This is Monica Campagna. I am an 11-year Glendale resident and former arts organization leader, teacher, and current arts enjoyer and supporter. And I'm also calling in to ask you to restart exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts to manage the Alex. I believe that they offer the best stewardship for this local agency and that they've demonstrated excellent stewardship over the years. As I recounted in my longer email to you, I personally was introduced to Glendale by attending shows at and then performing on the stage at the Alex, thanks to programming of the annual Celebrate Dance Festival, which featured local and regional dance companies. And I wish to echo previous callers to remind council of the value to local arts organizations and artists of having a suitable place to present their work, to connect with their community, and the value to the community to be inspired by, connect with, and be reflected in the work of these local and regional artists. There's a great and unique value in that relationship. A previous caller really hit this on the head. Glendale
Thank you,
Arts-
Monica. Thank you very much for calling.
Okay, guys, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bree Patillo? Bree?
Hi, my
You
name
have
is
1
Bree
minute. Go ahead.
Patillo. Thank you. Hi, my name is Bree Patillo, and I have been a Los Angeles resident for 10 years and an employee of Glendale Arts at the Alex Theater for 10 years this October as a master electrician. I love living and working in Glendale, and I want to see the Alex continue to be a shining beacon of art and hope in the community. Glendale Arts is a nonprofit concerned with arts in the whole community and works to promote collaborative success with fellow businesses in the area. A for-profit company would not necessarily be concerned with these things. Another company could choose not to rent to any of our current resident companies, such as Musical Theater Guild or Celebrate Dance that have been mentioned, and lose long-time and local business with these companies. A new company's programming could not appeal to the community or could price out community members. And while a new company could bring new jobs to the city, it would be at the cost of many jobs and lives built around the
Thank you,
Alex
Bree.
and Glendale.
Thank you for calling us. Your 1 minute is up. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Rick Lemo. Mr. Lemo, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I want to take a little different approach. I represent the Greater Downtown Glendale Association. We are probably one of the largest donors to the Alex Theater, and we do so because the Alex Theater really is part of the community. What I'd like to suggest tonight, or this afternoon, is that you please try a different approach to exclusive negotiation like many other cities. Have one or two council members and one local business community member participate with you and help with this negotiation and make something happen. If it doesn't work with an exclusive negotiation, of course move on to something else, no doubt about it. But it seems like that's not the case right now. I know that with us giving well over $200,000 since founding the Downtown Glendale Association, way back 15 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that, those funds would cease immediately if it was to go to an outside organization. It just doesn't work when you're not using the resources that are in front of you. So I ask you to please rethink the negotiation
Thank you,
style.
Rick.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Justin Ike. Justin, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Ike. I've lived in Glendale since 1998, and I own Theatrical Education Group, which produces Shakespeareans every year at the Alex Theater, which is the largest educational field trip in Los Angeles County. For the past 2 decades, we've brought over 100,000 students from all over Southern California to the Alex Theater. Should the city of Glendale decide not to renew its agreement with Glendale Arts, we are sad to say that we would be compelled to move Shakespearean and the next 100,000 students to another venue. With the current pandemic, there is simply too much economic risk for us to consider bringing our production back to the Alex Theater under new management, regardless of how much experience any new organization might bring. Glendale Arts possesses the institutional memory required to effectively manage the Alex Theater during these unprecedented times, and under no circumstances would we consider risking our production in the hands of another management team unfamiliar with the specific needs of our show. I would also like to say that I know the incoming leadership at Glendale Arts. I've worked with Maria and Nina for years, and I'm confident that they will continue Glendale Arts' outstanding track record. As such, please reopen exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts. Thank you.
Kathy Yurka, you're live. Kathy, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy Yurka, and I'm calling in support of council reopening negotiations with Glendale Arts. I agree that we need a community-focused nonprofit to oversee programming and care of this exceptional theater. It's not only a question of whether the Alex stays open, but whom it serves. I don't understand why a change of leadership in favor of 2 long-term, well-known and respected members of the Glendale Arts team is an issue. I also wanted to say that Kathy Grayson had to leave, but wanted me to send her apologies and express her support for Glendale Arts as stewards of the Alex Theater. Thank you very much for your time.
Lee Kennicott, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Great. Hi, everybody. I know you're very tired. Can we look up and take a big breath first? I am an arts person, so I want to see you participate. I just want to say that as a professor of children's theater, Glendale Arts has been very important to Glendale. I teach at Cal State Northridge, and this is an area of theater that is much neglected throughout even Southern California. This is maybe the most important aspect of Alex's programming, and we need to keep it going. Thank you.
Lilit Harutyunyan. Lilit, you have 1 minute. Go ahead. Ms. Harutyunyan? Lilit Harutyunyan, you have 1 minute. Go ahead. Gilles Chasen. Gilles, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Gilles Chesson. I'm the CEO of General Admission, Venue and Production Management. Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Councilman, for allowing me to speak. I just want to speak to a few points that were raised during this conversation, which has been great, and express my gratitude that we've been part of this process. And to say that if you look at General Admission's proposal, our rental rates that we propose are actually lower than Glendale Arts. Because we have a great respect for the Glendale community, and we actually really believe in the community and believe in the programming that's there already. Our proposal was all based around taking the programming that existed at the time and then trying to add to it and build upon it, not to replace it. And the motivation behind a for-profit company versus a nonprofit company is really the same. You have to curate material that the community will respond to, and that's where the success comes from. So it's not about doing something at the expense of the community, it's about really serving the community, regardless of what type of company it is, if you want to be successful. So we're really deeply committed to fulfilling the goals that the city,
Thank you, Mr.
articulated.
Chase.
And our proposal came in at the management fee that the city said was the target. So thank you very much for your time, and I thank you if you're able to consider us as one of your options as part of this conversation. Thank you.
Beatrice Porto, you have 1 minute. Beatrice? Beatrice Porto, you have 1 minute. Beatrice? Alex Parajon, you have 1 minute, sir. Alex, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Alex Parajon, Mayor Devine, and council members. I can't believe I'm actually calling in regards to this, but, you know, I've worked with the leaders of Glendale Arts for many years now in this great community. I actually was treasurer for the Glendale Health Kids. They took over the face of Glendale. You guys see how amazing they've done and turned that around. They're in the process of also taking over the Glendale Film Festival, and I know they're going to shine big time operating that as well. You know, Nina Crow and the gentleman that spoke earlier today said, you know, the concern about the leadership of Glendale Arts. I'm sorry, but Nina Crow is an amazing leader, past president of Glendale Sunrise Rotary, and her and Maria are amazing individuals that, I mean, you can't compel as to what they can do and make Glendale Arts even bigger and will help manage the Alex Theater successfully. Another note I want to say is, have you seen the board members of Glendale Arts?
Thank you, Alex, for calling
Serious
in.
leaders there. Thank you, and please, open negotiation with Glendale Arts.
Marilyn Takuda? Marilyn?
Yes, hi. My name is Marilyn Takuda, and I was the former arts education director of East West Players, which is the oldest Asian American theater in the U.S. And believe me, I know how challenging it is to maintain as sustain a nonprofit theater. But just like I love East West Players, who's still alive today, I love the Alex. I lived in Glendale for 28 years and attended numerous productions. I've even made an appearance on its stage. Glendale Arts has done a stellar job curating programming, offering voices from every aspect of our community in Glendale. I know you plan to keep it open, which is great, but it's what your future plans are that scares me, because it really is the heart and soul of Glendale. As I said, Glendale Arts have done a stellar job of curating the arts, and new management does not necessarily mean a better management team. Thank you.
Miles Williams. Miles, you have 1 minute. Mr. Williams? Miles Williams, you have 1 minute. Lilit Harutunyan, you have 1 minute, Lilit. Miss Harutunyan? Beatrice Porto? Beatrice?
Yes,
Go ahead, you have 1 minute, Beatrice.
thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Just a quick call. Please reconsider going back to the negotiating table with the Glendale Alex. I see the Glendale Alex and the Glendale Arts as part of a big, huge family in the city of Glendale, and I'm just such a heart here. I don't want this family to be broken apart, and we'll never have a chance to see Nina or all the wonderful people that have worked all these years with us. So please give them a chance, let them go back to the negotiating table. I would hate to see more changes coming our way. We had dealt with enough this past year. Thank you so much for listening.
Miles Williams? Mr. Williams? Mr. Williams? Madam Mayor, I will be dropping Mr. Williams. I've
All right,
attempted
thank
twice.
you. How many more do we have, please?
That's it.
Oh, okay. All
We've
right,
had
then.
a total of 33 callers. I have 33 names on my list.
All right.
Would you like me to stop taking any more calls if they come in at this point?
Yes, please. I want to thank all the callers for expressing their opinions on this matter. And with that, we will open discussion with my colleagues who would like to begin. Mr. Councilmember Agajanian.
I guess
have the
my
floor.
name was mentioned here. I just want to be clear that as a business person, as a chairman of nonprofit organization, it's on, I guess, isn't it?
It's on. Thank you.
Okay. The chairman of profit organization for years, and lots of nonprofit organizations I ran, and we rented the Alex Theater many times. So I'm somebody who very familiar with Alex Theater, very familiar with those who are interested to see a place that they can go and see performances, encourage performances. But one thing we have to be clear, that what we are trying to do is to see what's best for the city. This is what I have been elected for, to see the best thing for every, I mean, there was an issue here, somebody mentioned, if you divide the amount of money by the population of Glendale, will be $2.50 per person. I guess there is no relation between population of Glendale and who goes to Alex Theater. For one, every person who resides in Glendale probably doesn't go to Alex Theater. But the point is that others, they come, from other cities, they come and enjoy the performances here, which is great. But for the past 8 years, almost 8 years, this city, since 2008 to 2016, this city spent $16 million. They are speaking about the 500,000 or 400,000 or 300,000. That's not just that's one part of it, that the city helps those Glendale Arts, who has been around for a long time. You add that figure that we have to maintain the Alex Theater. As I said, over 16 million has been spent during 8 years. That's like $2 million per year. It's not just 250,000. So we have to see, as a manager, this theater is for arts. But however, you have to manage the expenses too. You don't go to your family and says, doesn't matter, I spend as much as I can. No. You spend based on what you have, and you have other obligations. If you spend your money on Alex Theater, it means you have to cut from somewhere else. This is all together. We have a pot for everything we do in this city, whether it's the street, somebody calls me or texts me and says, the streets are in terrible shape. There are potholes, and the other person comes and says, we can't stay in this city, it's so expensive, we have to go. So we need to help those too. People who've been here for 30 years, they can't afford it, they have to go. So we have to help that too. We have to maintain the police and fire and other stuff. It's not that there is money somewhere that you will take that money and you'll spend. Doesn't matter. Let's keep the street in the best shape. No. You will look at your cost, you will look at how much money you have, and then you decide. Some of the city streets has not been asphalted for a long time. So everything is relatively, you have to pay attention how you spend. Like the money you get when you work, there are certain money you get from your workplace, and you budget your family expenses. This is the same thing. I'm saying this $16 million we have spent on this Alex Theater in 8 years. If you concentrate just on 250,000, it says, what's the 250,000 for a city has a budget of, let's say, hundreds of millions of dollars, or whatever number. That's not a person should look at the issue. As I said, we're spending average of $2 million on this center. So we have to know what we are doing. We have to come up with ideas and do things, or ask, at least compare who is out there and what they are offering. For all this time, we didn't do it. We are not cutting Glendale Art from being in the process, but we have to hear from others too. This is the way a council member should work and do things. If I'm elected here, then I have to look at the bigger picture, not just Alex Theater. Everything should be looked at and find the right or come to right solution for it. Thank you.
Councilmember
I can
Brotman?
go. Yeah, I don't know where to start, but let me start with what my colleague, Councilmember Agajanian, just said. We should look at what's best for the city. If my memory serves me right, we did an audit of Glendale Arts, and then we spent $30,000 for a consultant to tell us what our options are. And then we issued an RFP, and we got a number of organizations offering to manage the Alex. We evaluated them. We had a council meeting where we discussed in detail 3 of them, and we selected one. I don't understand the point that you need to look at what's best for the city. That's what we just did. Okay, so that's point number 1. Mr. Calvert says there was back and forth in the negotiations with Glendale Arts. I think there was a lot of back, and there was very little forth. In their RFP, they, not in the RFP, I'm sorry, in their proposal to us, their initial proposal that we didn't accept the proposal, of course, but we said, this is the organization we want to negotiate with. But anyway, in their proposal, they suggested that we would contribute $5 million over 10 years, right? We said, give us a better offer. They came to 3.8 million. We said, give us a better offer. They came down to 2.8 million. But we didn't tell them what we want. We didn't ever make a counter offer. You know, I hesitate to use the word bad faith, but that is not the way I would negotiate if I actually wanted to come to an agreement with an organization, okay? We only gave them vague references to what's in the council member's head, but we did not counteroffer, and I just think that that's ridiculous. We say we reached an impasse. What kind of impasse? They're offering 2.8 million. We've been kicking around some number with them of 250,000 a year, even though I know some of the council members here aren't happy with that number. But if you take $250,000 a year times 10, that's 2.5 million. We're $300,000 apart in that sense. I just find it bizarre. And Mr. Calvert says, we didn't quite meet the goals we were trying to achieve. Not quite meeting the goals is very different than impasse, okay? So I would very much like to see us go back and seriously negotiate, put an offer on the table, and get this thing done. I don't think it should be that complicated. I want to talk about the consultant study that we did. So we hired the Arts Consulting Group, and they came and I have some quotes here. I won't go through them, but basically they said Glendale Arts is doing a good job. Financially they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job in terms of retaining and developing their talent. Very little turnover. The only thing there were a couple things that they suggested. One was that they place more emphasis on fundraising and put more resources into that. And another thing was that they consider maybe a mix of rental and self-produced content. Let's talk to them about that. I think they'd be willing to take some constructive criticism and make some changes. But one thing that the consultant report made very clear is that if we want a theater that provides access to community groups, like, you know, the film festival, like the Gay Men's Chorus, like the Glendale Youth Orchestra, if we want that type of a theater, it's going to require ongoing public subsidy at some level. They made it very clear that there is no free lunch here. We don't get to have a theater where we don't pay for anything, yet we're still going to have a theater that's accessible to the community. These are two very different things. So I think we're kidding ourselves that somehow one of these other proposers is going to be a white knight. We've had one that offered they'll make the theater available to the community, and it's not going to cost us anything. Well, You know the line about some swampland in Florida. I could sell you some of that if you want. If you believe that they're going to come in and do that, I think you're fooling yourselves. I think we're really playing with fire here. I think that Mayor Devine, you say that the Alex will not be shuttered. I'm not so sure. I think that we're chasing a false hope, and what's going to happen is Glendale Arts is going to crater, because if I were anyone there, I'd be out on the street with my resume. And in the meantime, we're going to be left with alternatives that are going to suddenly look very different once we're actually negotiating with them. Once they actually go into the Alex and they look at what it looks like inside, we're going to be in a different place. And I think we're going to be very surprised and very conflicted at that point. So I think if we really want to get our hands off this thing and not spend any money, let's sell it. Let's sell it. Let's put it out on a 99-year lease with a commercial organization and just walk away from the thing, okay? But I think if we want a community theater, not a community theater, if we want a theater that will provide access to the community, then we're going to have to, I think there's no one better to do this than Glendale Arts. So I think I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Would like to go next?
You
Want to flip a
rock,
coin?
paper, scissors, go.
Is there-
You know, I guess I'll get into it.
Okay,
And
all righty. Councilmember Najarian.
I didn't want this discussion to turn into any sort of criticism of Glendale Arts. I have been involved as a council member with Glendale Arts since 2005. I've seen the good work that they do. They do good work, but not perfect work. They may have been cleared by our audit, but you know, the audit searches for gross errors in management. So let's go back a few years, because we have to go back a few years. The city has been working with Glendale Arts, and we were giving them subsidies, let's go back 7, 8 years, in the $300,000 range. And every year when Elisa Glickman came forward, the council was not happy with that subsidy. We implored them to tighten up their management and to reduce the subsidy that the city needed to give them. And to their credit, they did. Each year they got a little better. They increased their bookings, they increased their profit margin until 2018, when they were down to $150,000 in subsidy. It was in the right direction, but council still said, well, we look forward to the day when you'll be self-sufficient or nearly self-sufficient. Then the pandemic came and everything was put on hold. And the opening bid that we get from Glendale Arts, after receiving their last full year, normal year of $150,000, is at $500,000. They went completely the wrong way and tripled what the subsidy was previously. That was not something that I was very happy about. Council had decided that we would be, and nevertheless, council picked them as the RFP winner. But that doesn't really mean anything until you talk details. And that's what the negotiations were, discussing details. It's my understanding that staff went to them and said, there's a number of 250,000. Council hasn't approved that. That might be a stretch to get there, which is quite an accurate description, but that's what we've got. Where are you? And they came nowhere close to that number, despite the fact that in the last full year of operation, they were well below that number. Now, does that mean staff is dealing in bad faith? No, it's not bad faith. It's reflecting what council's priorities were and what council understood to be. There were others who gave us proposals in the RFP, and they weren't going to charge anything. They were going to be completely cost neutral to the city. How in good faith can we tell our residents that we are going to bring in a company that's going to cost whatever their final number was, but hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, where there was an outfit who was well-versed, who had run historic theaters, and that didn't want any money. And they had some great acts too. We saw a list of their musical acts and performances. They were very exciting and very great. As far as the Glendale Arts bringing in community groups, I don't know about the other council members, but I personally have had complaints from smaller community groups who wish that they would have a chance at the Alex, but they were shut out for one reason or another. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there. This councilman does not hate the arts. This councilman does not hate Glendale Arts. This councilman put his wife on the stage on a fundraiser to get money for Glendale Arts at no cost to Glendale Arts. This councilman dug into his own pocket and gave a pretty good donation. I won't say what it is because that's not relevant to Glendale Arts. So for all those out there and all your emails and all the, the foam and froth that's out there about personal attacks on this councilman being corrupt, are we corrupt because we don't succumb to the last offer of Glendale Arts? No, we're not corrupt. We want what's best for the city. And I don't think it's reneging. What I think we need to do is to open negotiations with all proposers. So we're not ending it with Glendale Arts. You're free to continue. And I think we've made, at least this councilman has made his position very clear on what he's looking for a successful awarding of a contract. But there are others out there who gave very attractive proposals too. We need to find out if those proposals are legitimate, if they've done their due diligence, and continue on a negotiation process with all three, but no more exclusive with one group or the other, and let the best proposal, let the most viable and honest and true proposal win the award to operate the Glendale Theater, the Alex Theater in Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Najarian. Councilmember Kasakian.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that some very good points have been made on both sides of supporters or those like Councilmember Brotman who wish to continue an exclusive negotiation with Glendale Arts, and as well as Council Members Najarian and Agajanian. One thing I would disagree with Councilmember Brotman on is, and I know he probably didn't mean this seriously, but I hope he didn't, but to sell the Alex and be done with it, because I can tell you that we've lost a number of our historic assets in the city, and if we were to sell this and have someone come in that we don't know what their plans with it are, it would be a tremendous loss. I mean, I've probably spent more time in Alex than anyone else sitting up here on this dais. I remember as a kid going there and seeing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Ghostbusters 2, Over the Top, which was an arm wrestling movie with Sylvester Stallone. And like, just speaking of Over the Top, I think that both, at least from the community side, some of the assertions that we are anti the Alex Theater are quite over the top. It's not quite where it's not where I'm at. As have been said, we've been trying to make a decision that's best for the community. I was very happy to see the Alex when it was purchased or taken over by the city and preserved as an asset. And the question is, how do we make sure it continues to exist and serve this community? However, there's two issues here, right? There's the issue of how do we have a community theater and how do we have a profitable theater? We've had studies done and individuals that have told us that is a very difficult area to navigate, to try and make community theater profitable. And I do think that there is an opportunity here for us to perhaps compromise. I think that maybe we can sit down and talk to the Glendale Arts. I've supported the arts and Glendale Arts for years. And do I approve of how everything has been done over the last decade? Probably not everything. Some things have been done well, others have perhaps fallen short or missed the mark. But I'm not in that space. I don't run theaters. I don't know. I don't claim to be an expert in the arts. I know what I like. I know what I don't like, but it's very subjective to my taste. But I do know that the people who are involved in the operations of the Alex Theater are people from our community who understand our community, and we often talk about the uniqueness of this community. When we were selecting our city manager, I think one of the reasons why Mr. Galanian stood out over other candidates wasn't because other cities don't have good city managers, but because we knew that Mr. Galanian knew this community and understood it well. We bring in someone from the outside, there's going to be a tremendous learning curve, and I've said this before, my concern is that we turn around and 12 years from now, this new entity is exactly where Glendale Arts is today. They've invested the time. Is there things that they could be doing better or more? Sure, but we should also be clear in telling them what those things are, what our expectations are. And, on the other hand, if our goal is to simply be done with the obligation, the financial obligation that we're making every year, then the other options are, I suppose, on the table. Ultimately, we need compromise. One thing that one caller said that I appreciated, I think it was a unique idea, was Mr. Lemo, who said, let's have some council members be participating in that negotiation. If anyone here wants to sit in a negotiation and make a direct offer to the Glendale Arts, I'd be open to that if that's allowable. On the other hand, I'm also not completely against having the other entities that bid on this give us a true account of what they expect the costs of operating that theater to be. I think that one of the things that's of concern to me, Madam Mayor and my colleagues, is that all of this was done during the period of COVID when the Alex Theater received probably the worst gut punch that it could have ever received. All entertainment, all events shut down. They've been struggling to hang on, and now as they're trying to crawl back, we're going to be putting a thumb on their head, just keeping them down. And I think that that is not fair. So I think that it's fine for us to negotiate with them if there's a way to get the true cost of what the operations are. For instance, if I'm allowed to say, there is this issue of renovations and what the cost of those renovations will be. And I don't know if everyone who has bid on this is fully aware of that, because I don't think anyone actually toured the venue in person. Those are the types of things that are of interest to me, but ultimately I think that one of the things that where we need to compromise on, and the essence of negotiations is compromises, if we need to have council join staff, not all of council obviously, but have a representative from here to participate in that, I'd be more than willing to do that. If Councilmember Najarian or if the mayor or if anyone else wants to participate, I'd be willing to support that.
Yes, Councilmember Agajanian.
I just want to verify something. I said here that for Alex Theater, we have spent from 2008 to 2016, $16 million. I mean, it's not just this 250,000 we are talking about. If we are spending that kind of money, we have to see what's out there. That's my opinion. But since I mentioned the number, I just want to make sure that somebody will almost verify my numbers, and the city manager is hiding from me, I guess. I don't see him. Okay. Mr. Galanian, the number I gave, 16 million since 2008 to 2016, is that over 16 million? Is that correct?
Mayor Devine, members of City Council, Councilmember Agajanian, without the benefit of being able to dig into the capital improvement projects that we have funded for the Alex Theater, I can't precisely say that is correct, but it seems to be in the ballpark, considering we have had two major capital improvement projects done at the theater, and the largest one being the expansion project that cost over, I believe, $6 million. So over, you said 8 years?
8 years, 2008 to 2006.
Seems to be in the ballpark if we're spending $1.5 million, 1 million to $1.5 million in improvements on an annual basis. So within the ballpark, I would say.
Okay, that's what I wanted to verify, that approximately we are spending average of $2 million to keep the theater going. So this is a major money we are spending. So then we don't want to try, we don't want to see what's out there, what opportunities we have. We are not closing the door on anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as you can see, this is a very difficult decision that for all of us on City Council, have no doubt about that. And I just want to say that I want the Alex Theater to thrive, as I've said before, and I want it to remain a source of pride in our community and enjoyment for our community. I too have enjoyed many an evening at the Alex Theater, and I've been a staunch supporter of the Glendale Arts, and I will continue to be that. I want to thank all of the people that sent emails, especially those who took the time to write a personal note in support or not. I truly appreciate those the most. Theater is not going away, and we're going to continue to ensure that that it remains open. But what I'd like to do is include or let you all know that within the RFP were these primary goals listed by council in order of priority. Number 1, establish consistent financial stability and sustainability for the Alex Theater operations while minimizing the level of annual management fee provided by the city. That was the top priority of council. Number 2 was to provide a cultural facility and performing arts venue that is available, accessible, and affordable to use by local community organizations and nonprofits. And number 3, to attract top quality entertainment clients, events, and performances with great frequency, which will be an economic catalyst to our downtown. Keeping in mind, number 1 was fiscal sustainability. I base a lot of my decisions on fiscal responsibility. And I think that's what Councilmember Agajanian was referring to and talking about. During the discussions with the Glendale Arts, we were shocked and surprised and dismayed when Alyssa Glickman decided to leave the Alex Theater. I am looking at this situation that we're in right now as an opportunity, and I think Councilmember Kasakian hit on that a bit. This could be and is an opportunity to vet the leadership of the Alex, the new leadership, to give Nina Crow a chance to be involved and work with us in negotiating. And I think that we are going to continue. The idea is to continue to negotiate with the arts and to encourage them to negotiate with us. They mentioned today, I got an email today about, they're talking about how much the fee would be, but then would need a subsidy for programming. And so there are these little things that are coming out of these negotiations and these back and forth that we weren't counting on, or we weren't privy to at the time. So I think this is a great opportunity to continue our negotiations with the Glendale Arts while we explore another option and give this other operator an opportunity to really investigate. And this could be a good thing for Glendale Arts. I mean, this could be really good if we let them get into the weeds on the Alex Theater and what it would cost them to continue with to take on the management of the theater. So I think this is a good step in the right direction for all of us. I think we all need to have as much information on every entity that's involved in this moving forward. from everyone that's involved, and we need more information from Glendale Arts, and we need more information from anyone else that we want to negotiate with. I look forward to continuing the negotiations with Glendale Arts and looking into another possibility. How that will turn out, we don't know. But we have to try, and we have to see, because we have a lot at stake. We do want to keep the Alex Theater open. We want it to be a community theater where everyone can, in our community, can enjoy the productions that are there. But we also want it to not be this black hole where we keep putting money in and money in and money in. I would hope that by taking this step today, we can come out with the best management that we can for the Alex Theater, so that we can all see it thrive. And if that's Glendale Arts, amen, and wonderful. And if it isn't, then we move on. And I just feel that any other company that comes in to run this theater is going to take advantage of the Portos, of the Chipotle, of every restaurant and every organization in our city that's willing to help to make it a successful venue. A lot of things that we're talking about today, nonprofits and the board, et cetera, these could all be part of the negotiations, and it could all work out for the best for everybody. So let's look at this as a positive step, as a pathway to the best that we can do for the Alex Theater, the best that we can do for our community and our residents. And so with that, having said that, I would, if anyone would like to make some sort of a, do we need
suggest, of course, with Ms. Garcia's help,
yes,
that to open the negotiations with other companies too, that we have the names and they came forward, and see where we're gonna go from there. How we have to formulate, Mr. Garcia.
Madam Mayor, members of council, so the item before you was to consider terminating exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts and negotiating whether the council wants to provide direction to negotiate with all three proposers, or was noted by Ms. Calvert, the top two proposers, as those two, Glendale Arts and SAS, were very close in the overall rankings. That's the council's discretion. We would need direction, so I'm not sure what the motion is.
I suggest, since we are opening, let's open if the other person or
So your motion-
Councilmember
not good
Agajanian,
enough.
so your motion would have to be that we discontinue exclusive negotiations with the
Right.
Alex Theater, and we open negotiations between the Alex Theater and two.
With Glendale Arts,
Right, Glendale
General
Arts, I'm
Mission,
sorry.
and SAS.
Yes.
Is that your motion?
Yeah, yes.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
No.
Kasakian?
Before I vote, I just want to say that, I would have liked to have seen council assign someone from this body to participate in the negotiations to see if it would make a difference. I am worried about the number of local jobs and people who work at the Alex who know this community that would potentially be eliminated. The current proposal as it is, Mr. Agajanian's, I can't support it. I'll vote no.
Councilmember Najarian?
I'm voting yes, but I'm not sure if there's an amendment in that. Or maybe
Well,
it's a
there's motion
separate issue.
There's a motion pending, so.
Yeah, so my vote is yes.
And Mayor Devine?
Yes. Okay, that's where we are. And what's the next item, please?
Before we move on,
Okay.
since now negotiations have been
I'm
voted to
sorry.
be opened with
Yes,
all
hold on.
entities.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Is there any interest of having a council representative participate in this? And I'm not volunteering by making this suggestion.
I would have to.
I would be interested. If that's a motion, I would second it. We can do
Okay,
that.
Can we,
You can designate somebody to be on the committee or to be associated. I think there might be a Brown Act problem with having more than one council member.
Right.
Because it's the exception in the Brown Act is to have a less than a quorum when it's just the actual.
Mr. Garcia, let me just express also to my colleagues why I think this is important. I mean, one of the things that is the issue here is what staff has been saying to the people, to the entities participating in this, what information has been going back and forth. I think this would, having one of my colleagues there who could then report back to us, whether it's in closed session or even in open session, I think would be of great value.
Excuse me, I have a question
Yes,
about that.
Councilmember
Is the
Agajanian.
person going to just as a witness or will be there to listen to what's going on, or he will participate in the negotiation?
What is
It's
your?
very different. If we send somebody to negotiation, I don't know what that council member will say there. So we didn't have that direction that what he has to say, so it has to be very clear.
But
Well, we can get a
Councilmember,
excuse me, we can get a clarification on how you're thinking this role of a council member would play
To
out
be
in the.
present?
Well, I believe that all of us who have been in the same room discussing this issue have a sense of where we are. It's not to take over the negotiations by any means, but, you know, to Mr. Agajanian's point, we serve on a number of bodies, all of us do, where we represent this agency and this body, and I would see it as in a similar capacity. It would be to provide the council's input to represent our collective views or the direction, and sometimes that will all agree, and sometimes maybe they will inject their own opinion, but I think that there's value in having that person there to report back to us as to what transpired in a discussion.
Well, I don't know about, I'm a bit concerned about the feeling or the perspective of the different, I mean, we're not all in agreement on this. And so if we put someone there that is not in agreement with the council, then, or the majority of the council, then we could have an issue. Councilmember Najarian,
Well, so
thoughts?
are you going to have that person sit in on every negotiation? Because that would only be proper as well. So then you have a council member sitting in 3 sets of negotiations. 2 council members don't want, I mean, have clearly expressed that they want one particular entity to win the negotiation or win the award. I kind of have a little problem.
I would have faith in my council members to carry out, you know, their duties to the best of their abilities and with integrity and honesty as they do on all items and issues that come before this.
Well,
Like, on the other hand, if this is overcomplicating it, that's fine. I know we have a heavy agenda. This council voted and made a decision. We can revisit it in the future. I understand your points about.
I need to
one
think about
council
it a little
member.
more.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to vote
Yeah.
yes or no, but I need to sort of go
Yeah.
through it and.
And it's my opinion that, if I may add, that if this a council member is on this, in the negotiating, that they are there simply as a observer, as a listener, and not adding their opinions or their thoughts, and let the negotiating committee do their job, and the council member simply sits there and assures that everything is going back and forth, and that people are being heard, and that there are, you know, this one bids one, and then they come back, and it's everything is kind of copacetic as far as negotiating is concerned, but simply as an observer and as a listener. Mr. Agajanian.
That's what my concern was when I raised the issue, that to be observer is different. Now we have, basically, I don't know, if we have observer, is that acceptable?
I would think so. I think that it'll.
Your vote will be changed to yes?
No, I mean, I think having a council person there, regardless of whether they participate or not, would be beneficial. I certainly don't want staff to feel as though we're there chaperoning, you know, the meeting. But I think it would be beneficial in terms of how we've done this negotiation so far, which is week in and week out. And here's one of my concerns, right? This is one thing that I wanted to bring up, but I don't want to belabor this point. We are up against the timeline of making this decision because people are already looking for venues to book. venues are looking for acts to bring in to their venues. And, you know, the longer we delay this, the more we will miss out and put whoever is ultimately selected by the council at a disadvantage.
If I may, Madam Mayor, given that you've given us direction to negotiate with 3 different entities, we will have to come to you in closed session initially to get some, you know, set the ground rules and discuss kind of where you are as a base. So at that, I think that would give everybody the time to think about this a little bit more, and before we actually start these negotiations, have a subsequent discussion about this issue if you so desire.
Okay, shall we, well, let's do that.
Okay.
If I may, there was one other item on the
Yes.
agenda related to
Yes.
the
extension?
The extension of a you know, interim extension while we complete these negotiations. So the council could either give, and we still have to discuss in a very short time frame with the Glendale Arts folks. I'm not sure what the timetable will be, but either give us direction to do a month-to-month extension or, you know, 2 or 3 month extensions with whatever the
I would
council
be
pleasure.
fine with a 3-month extension.
If you could maybe give us direction to extend up to 3 months, so that, because we still have to
Sure.
go back to Glendale Arts and negotiate that.
Want to make a motion,
I will
Councilmember?
make a motion to give staff the opportunity, or give you the authority to approve up to 3 months of a contract extension with Glendale Arts. And then if you need to do month to month after that, you'll have that authority as well. That's
Great.
my motion.
I
Appreciate it.
second.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
And Mayor Devine.
Yes. And what's next, please?
Adjournment of the special meeting.
Thank
Move to
you.
adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned at 3:43. Okay, we'll move on to...
Mayor, before we jump on, I know ISD's, oh, it looks like they're already on our Housing Authority members. Okay, great.
I see Robert.
both on?
I
Okay.
do see Robert,
And Laura usually calls in.
and I do see Laura on.
Okay, good.
You want to make sure they can both hear?
Ms. Parazian and Mr. Aginian, can you hear us?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll call to order the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and Glendale Housing Authority. May we have roll call for the council, please?
Councilmember Agajanian?
Present.
Brotman?
Here.
Kasakian?
Here.
Najarian?
Here.
Mayor Devine.
Here.
And may we have the roll call for the Housing Authority?
Authority member Aginian?
Here.
Agajanian?
Present.
Brotman?
Here.
Devine?
Here.
Najarian?
Here.
Parazian?
Yeah.
And Chair Kasakian.
Here.
Thank you. Next, please.
The agenda for the Tuesday, June 29th, 2021 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority was posted on June 22nd, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Next.
Community Service and Parks regarding fiscal year 2021-2022 proposed revised annual action plan for Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solution Grant, and Home Investment Partnership Act programs. A, City Council motion to approve revised fiscal year 2021-2022 CDBG, ESG, and Home Annual Action Plan, authorize submission of the revised annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and authorize the city manager or designee to redirect excess, cancel, or unused program funds under $50,000 from one project to another with Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee approval. B, resolution of appropriation to appropriate $27,912 in additional fiscal year 2021-2022 CDBG funds in the Fund 2010 to various programs and projects as recommended by the CDBG Advisory Committee. And C would be Housing Authority motion to approve the revised fiscal year 2021-2022 CDBG, ESG, and Home Annual Action Plan and authorize submission of the revised annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian.
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. I'm just going to go directly to Onik Bulanikian, our Community Services and Parks Director, to present this item for your consideration. He has a brief PowerPoint. Mr. Bulanikian.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Devine.
members of the council, Housing Authority Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. Real quick, I have a brief presentation regarding our CDBG allocation for fiscal year 2021-2022. On February 25th, HUD released CDBG allocation totaling a little under 1.9 million. On February 26th and March 1st, the CDBG Advisory Committee met and made funding recommendations. On the 27th of April, we brought those recommendations to the City Council and Housing Authority to approve the annual action plan. And on May 13th, HUD issued a letter stating that we received additional funding in the amount of $27,912,000. So our final allocation for fiscal year 2021-2022 is a little over 1.9 million. The additional 27,000 is divided up between a percentage, 15% social service programs, and about 60% capital improvement projects. So out of the 27,000, $4,186 would go to public social services, 23,000 for CIP projects. Program administration, there wouldn't be any change. We did meet with the CDBG Advisory Committee last Monday, June 21st. We interviewed 14 agencies, and they allocated $299 to each agency that was funded in the initial allocation that we have received in February, totaling $4,186. And for the CIP projects, they funded the additional funds in the amount of $23,726 to the YMCA Glendale first floor all-inclusive locker room project. This YMCA project, the initial funding request was in the amount of $566,000. They were allocated a little over $300,000. The additional funds in the amount of $23,000 would increase it to about $330,000 for next year's annual allocation. Here's a summary of the funding plan. So next year, we'll be receiving $378,000 for administrative costs. This goes to staffing the CDBG program. Social services in the amount of 15%, $288,000. And our CIP in the amount of $1.2 million. $854,000 out of the 1.2 will be going to community projects, and then $400,000 will be going to one city project, which is the Pacific Park restroom renovation down at Pacific Community Center. So staff is recommending City Council and the Housing Authority to approve the proposed revised fiscal year 2021-2022 CDBG ESG Home Action Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, thank you. Any questions from staff? Sorry, from
I would
my
like to-
colleagues? Do we have any, no? Do we have any phone calls on this item?
No, Mayor, we don't have any callers.
Okay.
Would like to move the item.
All right,
Second.
second. Roll call, please.
If I may, that's for council items? Yes.
This is for council.
Okay.
That's for the ESG.
I would like to move for housing.
We have to take separate motions.
No, we are going to vote first, or can we make, no, we can't make motions.
Right, so items, looks like items 1A and 1B are for the council, so that,
Yes.
that motion, we'll go for that one, then separately,
Yes.
a motion for the housing authority.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine?
Yes.
May-
And,
May we have a housing authority
I would like
motion?
Well, let's
to
do-
move the
shall we-
item for housing.
No, I'm sorry, we did move both
A and B? Okay,
2A,
good.
1A and 2A together.
Thank you. Okay.
And now Member Agajanian has made a motion for one,
C.
C.
1C
Let's see,
and
I'm sorry.
2B,
Yes.
2C. Correct?
Can we do 2C yet? There's a separate report, I think, on
What, I'm sorry, was Mr. Agajanian's motion on the first item
First
for
item,
1A and
B,
1B?
And yours is for, yes.
I thought it was, but I didn't realize that items 2A and 2B were also council items. They had all been read into the record, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So Just for clarity, it should probably be made, another motion should be made for items 2A and 2B for the council.
Okay.
I would like to move item 2A and 2B.
B.
Okay.
Second.
For the house.
Well,
For council.
No, for council.
Council.
We're still on council.
And Councilmember Najarian seconded it, so roll call.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Councilmember Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine?
Yes.
That's it. Now, for housing, can we have one for one, may we have a motion for 1C and 2C?
I would like to move the item for 1C.
Thank you.
and 2C.
Yes.
Second.
Okay.
Authority Member Aginian? Authority Member Aginian?
Yes.
Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Devine?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Parazian?
Yes.
And Chair Kasakian.
Yes.
What's next, please?
Next would be item number 2, Community Service and Parks regarding fiscal year 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan, Substantial Amendment for Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solution Grant, and Home Investment Partnership Act related to
Can we just
CARES.
vote on that?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was
That's why
confused.
I'm like, I'm
did
going,
you-
what
was
do
that
we
part of
just
your
do?
item?
Because there's a,
Item 2?
That's a
there's
separate
another
item.
separate item.
That's what I was asking. Sorry, my apologies. That's why I
Sorry.
asked the question. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah.
Jimmy. So.
So do we need
sorry.
to, we need to
item-
redo those motions, right? We need
Yeah,
to-
well, let's have him read the item
Yes.
into the record, and then we can rescind them and then reapprove them. I apologize.
Item number 2, Community Service and Parks regarding fiscal year 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan, Substantial Amendment for Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Investment Partnership Act related to CARES Act funding for ESG CV2 and CDBG CV3. A, City Council motion approving the Glendale Continuum of Care Board's recommendation of the final funding allocations for the Emergency Solutions Grant, Coronavirus Round 2 ESG-CV2 in the amount of $3,104,861, and the CDBG Advisory Committee's recommendation for funding allocations and recipients for the reprogrammed portion of the Community Development Block Grant, Coronavirus Round 3, Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act of 2020, funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and authorizing the city manager or a designee to execute all agreements, amendments, certifications, and documents necessary to accept and implement the funding recommendations, and authorizing submission of the fiscal year 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan Substantial Amendment to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. B would be resolution of appropriation to reprogram $1,083,000 from the city programs to various community agencies as recommended by the CDBG Advisory Committee. C would be Housing Authority motion approving the Glendale Continuum of Care Board's recommendation of the final funding allocations for the Emergency Solutions Grant Coronavirus Round 2 in the amount of $3,104,861, and the CDBG Advisory Committee's recommendation for funding allocations and recipients for the reprogrammed portion of the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Round 3, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act of 2020, funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and authorizing the city manager or a designee to execute all agreements, amendments, certifications, and documents necessary to accept and implement the funding recommendations, and authorizing submission of the fiscal year 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan, Substantial Amendment to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you.
So do we need motions to reconsider at
Yeah,
this
well,
point? So I will move, Madam Mayor and Mr. Chair, I will move reconsideration of 2A and B for the city and 2C for housing.
Second. Roll call?
Councilmember
Well,
Agajani.
I'm sorry,
We need roll
take
call?
the council first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to do these.
Council. Roll call?
Councilmember Agajanian.
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
And Mayor Devine.
Yes.
And motion to reconsider for the housing item?
Move the item.
Second.
May we have roll call?
Housing Authority, Ajinian.
Of course.
Agajanian.
Yes.
Brotman.
Yes.
Devine.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Parazian.
Yes.
And Chair Kasakian.
Yes.
Okay, now we can move on with the report. Mr. Lanian?
Yes. Mayor Devine, members of City Council, Housing Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority will go back to Mr. Bulanikian for one more presentation on this item.
Thank you. Mayor Devine, members of the council, Housing Authority Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. Real quick, I do have a brief presentation on our additional CARES Act funding that we've received from the beginning of the pandemic beginning of the pandemic till today. Our background.
Could you make it full screen?
Can you make it full screen?
Sure, I'm working on it. Having some technical difficulties with the mouse, but I'll get to it.
Great. Good. Thank you. So, background on the CARES Act with the ESG CV and CDBG CV. Our first round of ESG was an amount of $569,000, and we received those funds last May of 2020. Those funds were allocated June of 2020. ESG CV round 2 in the amount of $3,104,000. We received those funds back in October of 2020. CDBG CV1 round 1 was in the amount of $1,175,000, which we received May of 2020. CDBG CV2 round 2 went to the states, and round 3 in the amount of $1,615,000 we received in September of 2020.
Excuse me.
Councilmember?
Are we supposed to view this presentation?
Pardon?
He can't see the screen, I guess.
Oh,
We can't see the screen.
Housing Authority, let me try again, one more time to bring it back up.
Much better.
okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right.
Can you go
And
back?
Councilmember Agajanian
I can
has
go
a
back.
question.
Yeah.
I can go
This
back,
the one?
yes.
Can you tell me about round 3, no funding? What happened that there was no funding?
For CV round, for the ESG round 3 funding, they were, the cities were not entitled to funds. The funds were given to the federal government, not federal government, the state government, and those funds are going to be used for homeless services through the other COCs, through the continuum of care. So the ESG CV round 1 and round 2 were direct allocations, and then round 3 went to the states.
But we are not going to get anything from them?
As of now, we won't be receiving any funding through the state. Any? So the Emergency Solutions Grant program, those funds will be eligible for homeless prevention, street outreach, emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, and additional homeless services that the city has taken on in relations to our, shower program and our deployment of hand washing stations and restrooms throughout the city. The first round of ESG CARES Act, this was implemented and approved back in June of last year. $360,000 for the Glendale Care Hotel Program. This also included Project Roomkey, which was a program that we worked with LA County and First to Serve, which was the homeless services nonprofit organization providing the 15 rooms for Glendale residents. And we also provided close to 35 rooms throughout through various hotels in Glendale and in LA area to unsheltered clients in Glendale. A total of 62 clients were placed in the Glendale Cares Hotel program. We also deployed hand washing stations and restrooms throughout the city, and worked with Showers of Hope, nonprofit organization, and provided portable showers. We spent $67,000 of the first round of CARES Act. And homeless prevention, we've allocated some funds for homeless prevention and administration in the amount of $56,942. Yes.
Yes.
Homeless prevention, what we do as homeless prevention?
Homeless prevention went to the nonprofit agencies such as Essentia and Catholic Charities. They paid for first month's rent, landlord incentive program, and last month's rent, security deposit.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. The ESG CV2 CARES Act, we had 2 rounds, we issued 2 rounds of proposals, November and December of 2020, and round 2, February through March of 2021. We had 7 community agencies that were awarded in $2,326,000 to provide homeless services in Glendale. The next slide are the agencies that were allocated $2,326,000. Adventist Health Glendale for navigating homelessness, prevention, and promoting stability. Essentia to expand their street outreach, shelter support, and adding a housing navigator to the program. Catholic Charities for the Loaves and Fishes program, which is their food pantry program and also their homeless prevention program. Family Promise of the Verdugos to expand their street outreach, rapid rehousing, and homeless prevention, which also includes rental assistance. Glendale Police Foundation, this is to expand the Glendale Police Department's homeless outreach program into the evening and weekend hours. YWCA for their domestic violence and emergency shelter program, and also for their Armenian Relief Society homeless prevention and rapid rehousing program. So just a summary of the programs that have been recommended. Street outreach in the amount of $543,000. Emergency shelter, which includes the Project Roomkey, Glendale Cares Hotel program, and the emergency shelter over at Essentia in the amount of $690,000. Rapid rehousing, $688,000. Homeless prevention for $683,000. Portable showers and Andy Gum for $94,000. And our HMIS system that we use in-house, the Homeless Management Information System, in the amount of $100,000, and administrating the ESG CV program in the amount of $305,000.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Bolanikian.
Sure.
And that goes back to the slide, the previous slide, the Armenian Relief Society of Western USA. Is that money going to the CPON chapter?
No, this is going to the Armenian Relief Society on Glen Oaks. This is the
Yes,
regional.
that's CPON. Okay,
Yes,
great,
the regional,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, the regional.
Great, okay.
They'll be conducting the rapid rehousing. They've received different funding sources through homeless services, let it be our HEAP program, our CASH program, and our HHAP program through the state. So their homeless services have expanded, and they would like to use additional ESG funds for their homeless prevention and rapid rehousing program.
Good, good.
My apologies, I was confused with the Home and Amend CPON chapter.
Oh,
They're-
okay.
They're
ROI
located on
chapter.
Burbank.
Oh, okay. Oh, CPON, okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
My apologies.
That's okay.
On to CDBG. So the CDBG CV Round 1 CARES Act in the amount of $1,175,000. We brought this program to council last May. We allocated $572,000 in emergency rental assistance. Our friends over at CDD have completed this program. The Small Business Grant Administration in the amount of $572,000. The final round of funding will be distributed within the next couple months. And our Senior Nutritional Meals Program in the amount of $30,049. That would be completed within the next month. The CDBG Round 3 CARES Act, we did come to council in December to allocate $950,000 to the Education Connection and $608,000 for the medical point of dispensing MPOS. We were hoping we can use the $608,000 to operate an MPOT program, but after connecting with HUD, they had mentioned that the CDBG CARES Act funds needed to be used in lower income area. So the $608,000 would not be eligible for the medical point of dispensing since the vaccination clinic was held at the Glendale Community College. So staff would like to return the $608,000 and $474,000 for the Education Connection Program and allocate those funds, and we issued an RFP in the amount of $1,083,000 to nonprofit organizations to start or have programs that would tie back into preventing, preparing, and responding to coronavirus, and that would meet the national objectives, which would be for low and moderate income clients and residents in Glendale. So staff did issue an RFP in the amount of $1,083,000. We had 12 agencies respond and submit proposals in the amount of $1,273,000. We met and interviewed, the CDBG Advisory Committee met and interviewed last Monday, June 21st. And the next slide is the funding allocation, the recommended funding in the amount of $1,083,000. So we have the Armenian Bar Association for their pro bono legal services clinic in the amount of $75,000. We have AGBU responding to the negative effects on COVID-19. It's a youth mentorship program that they would like to implement in the amount of $70,000. Armenian Cultural Foundation, supervised remote learning. They did change this program during their interview. They would like to implement a program for pandemic prevention and management and educating their members and the community on the importance of vaccinations and vaccination clinics and mobile vaccination sites. The Armenian Relief Society, in the amount of $180,000 for COVID relief and their recovery program. This will include food pantry and wraparound services that they will provide through the various programs that they have. The Campbell Center support employment program for their developing disabled participants. Catholic Charities, their Loaves and Fishes food pantry program. Door of Hope for their enrichment, social emotional support, and food assistance for survivors of domestic violence. Family Promise of the Verdugos would have their Can't Stop Us From Housing, for paying for first and last month's rent for homeless individuals that are looking for housing. Glendale Community College Foundation for their employment program. We also have Glendale Youth Alliance for their employment program, Salvation Army for food pantry, and YWCA for their parenting and counseling past COVID, the COVID pandemic. So there are three new agencies recommended for funding: the Armenian Bar Association, the Campbell Center, and the Glendale Community College Foundation. We have two returning agencies, the Armenian General Benevolent Union and YWCA of Glendale and Pasadena. Services would provide legal services, food pantry, and programs and survivors of domestic violence, youth programs, employment programs, and so on. So our funding plan for CV3, $57,000 will go to program administration. $1,558,000 will go to public social services, one being the city project in the amount of $475,000, which is our education connection after school program, and the rest would go to community projects, 12 community projects in the amount of $1,083,000. So staff is requesting City Council and the Housing Authority to approve funding recommendations in the amount of $3,100,000 for ESG and $1,083,000 for CDBG CARES Act funds, and then approve submission or substantial amendment to the 2019-2020 CDBG Annual Action Plan.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Then I need a motion for item 2A and B
I would like to move.
for council.
item 2A,
And B,
2A and 2.
second?
Second.
Roll call,
I
please.
have one question,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Madam Chair. So the Glendale College Foundation is the fundraising arm of Glendale Community College. So are they an eligible agency to receive the funding as opposed to the college itself?
Mayor Devine, members of the council, Housing Authority Chair, Housing Authority Cosaga, members of the Housing Authority. Councilmember Najarian, yes, they're a nonprofit organization, and they meet the qualifications to be a CDBG-funded organization. And this program would be for their food pantry that they've been spending money on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, that's
Sure,
my only question.
sure. Roll call, please. We have a motion.
Councilmember Agajanian.
Yes.
Brotman.
Yes.
Kasakian.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
And Mayor Devine.
Yes.
May we have a housing authority motion for 2C?
I would like to move the item.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Authority Member Arginian.
Yes.
Agajanian.
Yes.
Brotman.
Yes.
Devine.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Parazian. Parazian.
Yes.
And Chair Kasakian.
Yes.
Next item. Adjourn
Move to adjourn for
for
council.
Sec.
Second?
Motions to adjourn for housing?
To adjourn for housing.
Second?
Thank you.
We are adjourned at 4:13. Thank you very much.
Close.
Yes.
The full day.
Okay, we're going to move on to the June 29th Glendale City Council meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Agajanian.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
And Mayor Devine.
Here. Next, please.
Would be one, closed session, 1A, conference with labor negotiators. The city designated negotiators attending the closed session are Ruben Kalanian, Michael J. Garcia, Jillian Van Meiden, Matt Doyle, John Taktayan, Silvio Lanzis, and Michelle Flynn. The names of the employees' organizations are Glendale City Employees Association, Glendale Management Association, and Glendale Firefighters Association, unrepresented employees, executives, and confidential employees. B would be conference with real property negotiators.
You can skip that one, 1B, we did that one already, thank you.
B, we're taking off the,
Yeah, we did that.
You
That was
already
the-
did that.
you? Okay, next.
C would be conference with legal counsel pending litigation, City of Glendale et al. Versus Kemp Brothers Construction Incorporated et al., LASC case number 19STC V37455. D, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Jung versus City of Glendale, LASC case BC 688899. E, public employee performance evaluation, city manager. F, public employment attorneys. G, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, City of Glendale versus Public Employment Relations Board, Court of Appeal, Second Appellate District, case number B304702, Public Employment Relations Board decision number 2694-M, Public Employment Relations Board case number LACE 805M.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, do you expect to report out on any of these items?
Mayor, do anticipate reporting on item 1C and 1F. And I would note for the record that I will be recusing myself from item 1G. That decision could potentially affect the law firm of Leader Cassidy Whitmore, which is a source of income to me due to my spouse's income. So I will not be participating in that item. And that should be reflected in the minutes, Mr. Jemian. Thank you.
Thank you. We are recessed to closed session.